Hey guys, it's Ben the Coin Geek at Old Pueblo Coin, and actually I'm not at Old Pueblo Coin. Welcome to my internet cafe, and good to have you here today. Remember, please like, subscribe, do the YouTube things because it helps out with the algorithm. And if anybody wants to have this content available for other collectors, then this is the way to share that information by telling people, hey, it's worth hanging out here and listening to whatever this guy's saying. Now, let's get on with a very specific question. James asking, so Ben, what's the current status on coin collecting / numismatics? I've heard gloom and doom for a couple of years, but my gut tells me that the demographics of coin collectors is changing, and the way coin dealing, valuing, and collecting is much more web and computer influenced. I think that the hobby is just going to keep growing. And a Silver Fox popping in here saying that they're following. All right, well, you too, and whoever else chooses to watch this video, let's talk a little bit about that. This is kind of a nice time to talk about the coin market because, of course, we had a pandemic and we had the big pandemic push that got into all kinds of coin collecting and other collecting marketplaces. You saw pushes forward in the sports card market, especially. All kinds of other things, Pokemon, Funko Pops, whatever else is out there that people want to collect. Collecting kind of took off in a way. So it wasn't just the coin market that took off and went up in value. But the real question here, I think, has to do not with the price of things, but rather the engagement. And so I'm actually not a fan of really rapidly rising prices on anything. I prefer very stable markets where you can really kind of have some predictability. I'd prefer to be able to plan out and say, okay, I'm pretty sure that this coin will cost me a similar price in a year or two than it does now. Not that the coin will have doubled in price in a year or two. That's just not a lot of fun as a collector. So we've seen a lot of different price points moving around over the last couple of years. But that's not really the question here. The question here is, how is the hobby and what's the long-term look of the hobby? And, I have to try to be objective here, which is going to be hard for me because I'm pretty much kind of a half glass half full guy. Something like that. I tend to keep things kind of positive even when things are really not great. But that's because of this. Watch. How many of you guys are older than me? Raise your hands. All right, so a couple of you. Now listen. What type of garbage have you lived through in your life? And did you survive it? Like, are things better or worse than they were for you a long time ago? Now, everything is very personal. So your answer to that question may be, no, life sucks right now, right? But my point is we've all gone through seasons of that. And not only have we all gone through seasons of that, but also it's very personal. So COVID could have destroyed your business, and it did for a lot of people. Or if you're making those plastic sheets that everyone wanted up by their checkout stands, your business did things you never thought it could do, right? So, it's very personal. So my point about this is that the personal side of the hobby can vary a lot for each of us. So if I go and see a lot of very positive things, I'm going to tell you everything's very positive, right? And so the idea here is let's try to be objective about how things are in general. Prices have moved down on a couple areas. There's certain areas of the market that have gotten softer. But once again, does that mean that the hobby's in trouble because prices are coming down? My answer to that is no. And to get back to the question here, when you look at the diversity of collecting and how it's changed in the last 5 years, let alone 25 years, it's pretty remarkable to see all the changes that have happened. So 25 years ago, let's go in the Wayback Machine here, you had your coin club and coin shops and coin shows. And that was close to it. I mean, the magazines were actually very busy because, there was a lot of different numismatic publications because there wasn't another way to really communicate or get information out there. That was the new hot, fresh information, right? Books were the old information, but the publications, you had a chance monthly to get something new in front of you. Of course, now today, you can follow idiots on YouTube who put up new information daily. and that kind of scratches that itch for all of us, right? So, but basically you had 2 or 3 main forms of collecting and of community. Well, now today you've got YouTube, and that has its own little sub-communities. I find this very fascinating. I see a lot of little communities pop up there. And of course you've got all your Facebook groups, you've got your Instagram groups, you may have your coin club if you're lucky enough to be somewhere with a coin club, you've got your coin shops, your coin shows, and there's just a whole lot more diversity. So the hard part is you can have your local coin club meet, and it's a bunch of 75-year-old guys, and there's 10 of you, and it's been that way for 10 years. And maybe that has to do with the size of the community you're in, but for you it's very hard to tell whether the coin market is healthy or not, right? And so I am not in all of these sandboxes at the same time. I cannot be. It's just there's only one of me, right? And so for some of you, you may be very negative towards the market because you're experiencing something that's very different than people in other parts of the country, right? I don't watch the news, so I don't care what they tell me about the economy. This creates objectivity for me. Now, it's harder for me in the coin realm because I'm involved in different things. So it can be harder for me to be objective. If you live in an area where the economy is bad or you're unemployed, the economy is bad for you. It's like you can't necessarily see the positive. But, you know, from where I am, in generally speaking, in a larger city in America, I don't see a bad economy necessarily. And the reason I bring up the economy is because it does affect the market and collecting as a whole, because if people do not have income to spend, it makes the hobby harder to survive, even though you can collect and be in the hobby at very different price points and levels. You know, there's a lot of different ways to splice that and look at it. So the overall diversity of the marketplace, though, is the thing that I want to key on, because what I've observed from going to shows over the last year is that I think that the market is going to be healthy for a while. And I mean the collector hobby market. I'm not trying to predict the value of coins in the future. In fact, like I said earlier, I prefer the stable market over the woo, we're going up market. The going up market creates bubbles. It gets people disenfranchised when all of a sudden prices come down, things like that. You know, I prefer a really healthy, slow and steady wins the race kind of market is my preference. So when I go to shows, what I see is a very large, diverse group of individuals. And not just me, it's been helpful having other people at shows with me to talk to about this stuff. And we've had a couple of those conversations recently. I have had a couple of those conversations with people who are not in the coin market, and that's helpful. And people who are not used to traveling, shall we say. And the commentary on how many different types of people collect coins in age groups, the number of families. And so now I'm going to jump into one of my biases. But for me, one of the things that I see that is new to the market, which excites me, is the family angle. There's always been some families that collect coins, but being at shows and having people come up, and I know that people are learning by watching on YouTube, and they've got their content up on their big screen at home, and their wife or their kids are in the background running around. They might not actually be watching it necessarily, but that tends to create community. Just like if you're at home and your wife watches Dr. Pimple Popper, like if you actually had to go meet Dr. Pimple Popper, you'd feel like, oh yeah, I know who you are, even if you don't actually watch that stuff, right? Do you understand? Or your kids are into a certain type of show or whatever it is, you tend to learn tidbits about it. And so to the point here that was asked, the internet and the connectivity levels that we see in the coin market are so diverse that it's creating lots of little pockets of collectors everywhere. And just think about, once again, if you used to live someplace that had no coin shops, and you still live someplace with no coin shops, but now you don't have to rely on getting your newspaper once a month from, you know, whatever Coin World. Now you can enjoy a community online, from any of those social media platforms we were talking about before, you get to be engaged in the hobby. And being engaged in the hobby is important, because if you are just out on an island, it's easier for you to fall out of the hobby, so to speak. It's easier for people to get unengaged, disengaged with the hobby if they don't have a community around them to support them. And so what's cool is I see more and more people trying to get me into all of their little groups, right? And which, by the way, thank you for everyone who invites me to your groups. I appreciate that. Also, what it tells me is that there's a lot of activity. And really, activity is important. The multi-generational stuff is important. And the diversity, all this stuff plays to the fact that I think you're going to see the hobby in general, collectibles hobbies in general, stay solid and continue to grow in different areas. See, there's certain areas of collectible markets that are I think a little bit of a flash in the pan, and some of you know what I'm talking about because you've been there before, with markets that have just popped up overnight and then they're just gone tomorrow. The coin market is not like that. It is just one of the dinosaurs in the room, so to speak. Coin collecting's been around for centuries, millennia even, and it's only gotten more and more, I'll say, available to the common man over the years. And I think all of that bodes very well for the coin hobby, right? So I'm not trying to predict the coin market and whether things will go up or down in price, but I will say I like where we're headed. I do believe that even as the economy softens or the coin market softens, I don't think that's a bad thing for the marketplace at all. And I don't think that necessarily will cause the same level of disengagement that you've seen when you see a boom and bust cycle on stuff. So I'm pretty excited for it. So those who've said gloom and doom, that was all pre-COVID talk, in my opinion. We saw a whole lot of that, and leading up to COVID, the market itself, a lot of dealers basically said we're going the way of the stamp market, which is to say we're not going to survive this, right? And now you went into the 2021, 2022 cycle, and you couldn't help but make money on stuff, and so dealers were like really excited about that. And so a lot of times that dealer perspective gets kind of flushed out through the marketplace, because that's who, when you go into a shop, maybe that's who you're talking to, and so you hear that and feel that. And so maybe if you're hearing current gloom and doom, it's because you have people that are saying things at shops like, oh, I can't sell these anymore, I can't sell these anymore. Well, the price points can change, and that doesn't mean that the market is dying or dead or going to die. So anyways, thank you so much for your question about the coin hobby and market. I'm excited for the future. I think that the level of engagement that we can provide for collectors is much higher than it used to be, and I think the sense of community is stronger than it's been in years. And those two things alone really, I think, create a space where we're going to see a market that's going to be nice and solid for a long, long time to come. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching. I've been the Coin Geek. You can subscribe by clicking on the owl button in the corner and watch more videos on the right side of the screen. Thanks.